Ladies and gentlemen, the wait is finally over. Welcome back to Aero League Racing and welcome back to Tier 1. My name is Aman and you will join me today for the opening race of the season at Brazil. Clear skies surround the track as we're all set to get underway, and while we have the chance, why not discuss the circuit? An anti-clockwise track consisting of 15 corners, 9 of those to the left and the remaining 6 to the right, with 2 DRS zones. A circuit with a rich history of brilliant on-track action and competitive driving will be sure to provide us with nothing short of fantastic racing.
And we'll have to see how Big Bambino bounces back from this. DRS wide open. Will he be making a dive down the pits? Yes, he will. Decides to abandon his lap and feels like that's just not enough. Meanwhile, Paul House roughly 0.05 of a second up on his time. Will Paul House be able to take provisional pole away from Elite? We will have to see as he approaches the DRS wide open, and as he comes towards the start finish straight. Will he be able to do it? Let's take a look over here. Comes across the line, sets a 107.47, roughly 1,000th of a second faster than Elite, and manages to take provisional pole away from the Aston Martin driver, who unfortunately has no other choice but to concede the position. And by the looks of it, ladies and gentlemen, that will be the end of qualifying here in Brazil. So, ladies and gentlemen, your pole position sitter for this race will be Paul House. Elite will be sitting in P2 and BR4 in P3 with a 107.6. We're all set to get the Brazilian Grand Prix underway. It's been a long awaited season. We've had a wonderful break time and tons of new drivers have now entered Tier 1. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. It's lights out and away we go here. Paul House manages to get a decent start with Elite Spectre right beside him. We can see a car that has jumped up massively in the background there. And that seems to be in the form of Elite, who's managed to push himself up into P4 by the looks of it. We can see Paul House managing to retain P1 at this current stage. And BR4 has unfortunately lost his car there, maybe because of a slight tap-in from the cars behind him. Has unfortunately dropped down as there's 3 wide heading into turn 1 from P5 to P7. And on top of that, it looks like Ella has managed to come out on top of this scuffle and is actually going side by side with Staba on this occasion. Who's going to come out on top? They're still side by side heading into the next corner, and it seems like Ella with the inside line is managing to maintain that position and has managed to keep that position. It doesn't seem like Staba is going to be diving down the inside just as yet, as there seems to be a bit of a tapping there from the backside from BR4. Regardless, Paul House has managed to keep P1 at this current stage, but he's very closely followed behind by Big Bambino, who's actually on the medium tire compound. Big Bambino was the one who's made the massive jump as he's on the medium tires. And it seems like the hard tires are having a very tough moment in this race as they're struggling for grip. Looking down the grid, we can see BR4 very close behind Staba. So a very chaotic and a very nice start to this race as we've seen. Paul House has managed to keep the lead of this race at this current stage. Will Staba be looking to make a move, diving down the outside? We'll have to see. Has actually managed to make the move before the corner even finishes and has managed to promote himself up into P6. And massive credit to Elite as he manages to keep a hold of his position. But as I say that, Stell now going down the inside into turn 1. Will he be able to make the move? Yes, he does. Heading into turn 1, manages to make the overtake. Elite thought about maybe making the switchback, but can't do anything just as yet. And now Stell gets promoted up into P3. But it's not over just as yet, as the DRS opens up right back for Elite. And will he make a dive down the inside or the outside? No, he will not. So it's safe to say Stell has managed to confirm that overtake and has managed to promote himself safely up into P3. As this DRS train continues, no overtakes once again. We saw BR4 was very close on the previous lap. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's close enough on this occasion. Ella, on the other hand, very close behind Elite as he looks down to dive around the outside. DRS wide open. He has his teammate right in front of him, maybe possibly not allowing him to make an overtake. And never mind, Elite actually manages to make a dive on Stell. It didn't seem like Stell was within an overtaking range, but regardless, Elite managed to make a fantastic overtake and gains a lot of time on the Mercedes drivers. Meanwhile, we can see almost 3 wide heading into the next corner, but we can see the Alpine Staba decides to back off as BR4 dives down the inside and manages to promote himself up into P5. And Staba now getting very interested in this compromised Mercedes. Thought about maybe making a move around the outside, but the Mercedes covers the exit off very nicely, so he'll stay in P7. BR4 gets promoted up into P5, and Stella unfortunately drops down into P4 after getting overtaken by Spectre. And obviously Stel will not be happy with himself after losing out on P3. I did not think that he... Oh, and as I say that, Elite has actually managed to spin out and has completely lost his car there. And we can once again see a bunch of overtakes taking place. No safety car just as yet. We can see Ella and BR4 going side by side with each other heading into turn 1. Who's going to come out on top? There is a bit of wheel banging going on between the drivers, but it doesn't seem like there's any big collisions. Meanwhile, they're still side by side heading through turn 1. And it seems like the Mercedes is going to be able to retain that position. But with the Red Bull now dropping down a position, will he be a bit compromised by the Alpine? It doesn't seem to be the case. DRS wide open as BR4 once again attempts to make an overtake on the Mercedes, but it won't do anything just as yet. And we can see Steva now going side by side with the Red Bull, and unfortunately once again cannot make any moves. And unfortunately it seems like Elite has DNF from this race. What happened there? He completely lost his car and then unfortunately spun it around. And with that, it allowed Stella and Ella to go back up a position. And once again, BR4 going side by side with Ella, but nothing doing yet. These Mercedes drivers once again covering off their corners very, very nicely as they once again go side by side. BR4 going to try to go around the outside, but unfortunately, Ella has just a better grip with those medium tires, and we will be able to maintain that position at this current moment. We've had some fantastic driving from these midfield drivers at this current stage, and we can see Steba now getting very close behind the Red Bull as both the Alpine and now the Red Bull going side by side heading into turn 1. DRS wide open as they gain on the Mercedes, and it seems like Steba is going to be able to make the overtake before the corner, and Steba now manages to promote himself up into P5. And it doesn't seem to be the case. It just seems... Oh, actually, it might actually be a lot closer than I think, as both drivers are now coming out on nearly side by side into the DRS range, and it doesn't seem like Bambino's plan worked out to the best. We can see Paul House weaving left and right, trying to get some heat into his tires as he comes out of the pits in P5. And at this current stage, Ella is the only driver on the mediums who hasn't decided to come into the pits there, and Paul House desperately trying to get some temperatures into his tires. Oh, and then because of those cold temperatures, it seems like Bambino's actually going to make the dive down the inside and now the outside. Around the outside he goes up Paul House, and with those with those heated up tires, he does manage to make the overtake stick and has managed to undercut Paul House. After Paul House, of course, had to struggle with those cold tires, but once those tires warm back up, we'll have to see if Mitchell can bounce right back at him. But that won't stop BR4 from trying once again. As they head down the start-finish straight, DRS wide open. The Mercedes in front of him unfortunately does not have any DRS. He dives down the inside trying to make a move into turn 1. They're going side by side with each other. There's a bit of wheel banging between the Mercedes and the Red Bull drivers. And unfortunately that costed BR4 just a little bit as he heads down into the second DRS zone, tries to tuck in right behind the Mercedes for a possible slipstream once again. Will he dive down the inside? We will have to see as they come into the next corner, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to dive down the inside. Unfortunately not. So that little bit of contact that the Mercedes and the Red Bull had costed BR4 dearly as Steva picks up the first 3-second time penalty of this race. Looking down the grid, Trocker very close behind Jacko Lacko on this occasion. Heading down into turn 1, Trocker dives down the inside, but he can't get the move to stick as Jacko around the outside manages to retain the position. Trocker thought about making the switchback, but unfortunately for him, Jacko covers it off. But with DRS in the next corner, how will this prevail for Trocker as he has his DRS wide open and manages to make the move stick before the corner even ends, and manages to promote himself up into P10. Got a lot of overtakes building up over here as we can see Steba now very close behind Jaguar as they're heading down the start-finish straight. DRS wide open for Steba as he looks towards making an overtake on Jaguar. Where will he go? Decides to go the long way around the outside as Jaguar covers the inside line. Steba around the outside manages to make the move stick, and unfortunately Jaguar is going to have to concede the position. But heading into this next corner with DRS, will Jaguar be able to bite right back? We will have to see, and it seems like he will. Jaguar going into the inside into the next corner, and Steba once again around the outside manages to defend the position very, very nicely and manages to retain P6. This move has been building for quite a while, but Ishtar not done just as yet, with DRS wide open, looking to fight this position right back, trying to go around the outside of Trocker, and actually managing to. Never mind, Trocker not done with this move just as yet. Both the Ferrari and the AlphaTauri going side by side, heading into the next corner. They're still side by side, and Ishtar actually managing to make the move stick, obviously opting to not brake, while Ishtar Trocker actually opting to. There's a bit of contact between the drivers, and Trocker has lost his car. Oh no, there was some great racing between the AlphaTauri and the Ferrari there, but Trocker, unfortunately, after that collision, has lost his car and has unfortunately spun around and has dropped down into P10. That promotes Jacko into P9 and allows Ishtar to retain P8. Powerhouse and Bambino have basically been at each other's throats for the entirety of this race. 36 laps, we've seen these two drivers building a move on each other, and Bambino in the final moments of this race maybe thought about making a push, but unfortunately it won't be enough. Powerhouse comes across the line and wins the Brazilian Grand Prix. Bambino finishes in P2 despite, after a fantastic race from him. BR4, after Stell and Ella's mistakes, manages to promote himself up into P3. Stell sitting in P4, Steba in P5. Jaguar manages to retain P6. Doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to maybe get promoted up a position. And Ella in P7. Pyro, with his penalty, looks like he'll most likely be dropping down a position or two as he comes across the line and finishes in P8 and actually allows Trocker to go through, just because there's really no point. And Pyro drops down into P10. Ishtar gets promoted up into P9. And what a fantastic first race of the season we have had.